I want to call the meeting to order. Okay, we'll just, you can add him in, because I know he's coming.
Betty, would you like to join us, or are you going to?
I'm just going to be in the corner.
We were co-located earlier in the day, so as Betty said, remember
There's room
that
up
name.
here.
Most people just grab up a chair, you're doing the whole table.
I bring the whole table.
I guess I could have asked you, need some help.
I appreciate your generosity offer.
Okay, let's get on with this. Because we have Dan McCray coming. I am going to call the November 6th regular meeting of the DDA to order. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Semi-journey.
I will alert you, later on we'll be going to executive session and having revised it.
Wait, yeah.
So I'll let you know on that one. The first thing is to approve the agenda. The only thing if we have time, I'd like to add that, would you be able to talk about that grant, not the grant, the thing, the blue?
The Renaissance?
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll tell you what I know.
Well, because I really think if we start getting the word out, that's
Where do you want to do that?
under number 12, and then adjournment will be last. That's only if we have time. I don't want to keep anybody here. Can I have a motion to approve?
What's the title?
Renaissance Act. It will be right under grant application.
I move we approve the agenda.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approved unanimously. The minutes are in your package, and we need to approve those for the October 2nd meeting.
So moved.
The only thing is right at the top, it just says October. Well, I guess it's October,
Yeah.
but we probably should put the date in there, right?
Yeah.
Because it just says October, just put the date.
24th one.
Oh. So it was the second,
Second.
October 2nd.
Oh, two spaces there.
Can I have a motion to approve? I'm sorry, I didn't look at this ahead. Did you motion?
to
Second?
approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those are the October meeting.
Who was the second?
Ralph did. The next thing is, I'm going to pass around, you need to sign it if you attended this meeting. I can't, did you look it up by chance? These are the two closed meetings that we've had. There's not much, it just is an affidavit that we have, that you were there, and that we discussed things, related to the acquisition, leasing of real estate. So, if you'll sign your name, and that you agreed, just put yay since you agreed to go into closure.
Like everybody was here on the 24th. The 27th.
I'm going to make a motion that your yay signals your approval of those minutes. Can we do that? Can we do that?
I'm sorry.
Oh, well, because everybody hasn't had a chance to look at them, that we are looking to approve the executive session minutes.
For which ones?
The 24th and 27th.
Okay, I think we already did.
Did we do that, and we're just signing it? Okay.
I
have another one
of
for the
them we did.
27th. Do you have two of them there?
I do.
Is
I
one?
have one.
Why do I have one that's the 27th? And he's got one.
One's the 24th.
This
one's
is
the
the
27th.
second,
And
Okay,
one's the
then here.
second.
Then we have three.
and this is the 24th.
And this is the 20, here's the
Okay, I want to make sure I don't mess you up. So, do I sign here as a yay? Okay, it says
Yeah.
Y for yay.
And I believe everybody was here. There might have been one, Richard, that you were out of town, but I'm not sure.
The 27th is missing.
I don't think I was here
McMillan.
Yeah.
You, I think, recused yourself. I'm not sure.
on that one, but I was
Right.
here on the 24th.
Okay.
How are you?
Good. Hello, Lonnie.
So I was thinking, so the October 2nd is the only one, so we're just doing formalities on the first two, and we have an October 2nd. I'd like to, I guess if we need a motion to approve them, they're just identical to the other, it's the affidavit, it's the standard affidavit says that we went into closure to discuss real estate. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of closure for the October 2nd meeting, executive session?
I moved it.
Anybody second?
Second.
Ralph second?
Okay.
Let's just do it.
Which one?
All, both of them at the same time, so pick either
Okay.
one of those. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes. Okay.
And on the 2nd,
Mhm.
okay, so we're just to the 2nd and the 27th?
You said we already approved the first two, the earlier two on our last meeting, correct?
I think we didn't get to one of them because we were missing the minutes, and so we didn't vote on them. They disappeared. I think they walked out and someone left before.
5 minutes into it.
Okay.
You don't remember that?
No. Well, I'll tell you what.
I just wanted to show you what I did.
Yeah.
All right.
For October 2nd, I was here, and I was a yay.
Good.
Yep.
And then right here was a yay. I wasn't here, so.
So you don't sign it?
So because it's on the
Exactly, perfect. You know, if we need to vote in on any more, we'll do it later on.
I'll explain this
I think
to
I've
you.
got all of those
This
approved.
is October 2nd. I was here, so
I
I put
would
Y.
think that that would.
I was
Huh?
here.
I would
It
think
already
that
has
the
a Y.
affidavit would-
Affidavit will approve.
And if you were
show
here-
approval. That's why I was trying to make a motion that when
These
you
are the
write
three meetings.
yay, you
This is
approved
the
it.
27th.
Treasurer?
The 24th.
Let's see,
So I
we
had all of
have
them?
a bank balance.
You were all in.
Okay.
$1,649.61
Ditto.
in our bank balance, so there wasn't, other than a service charge, that's all that was. I did reach out to Kay Love today about getting the approved funding of about $142,000 moved over from the city to our account. So she asked if to check or wire, so I told her, why don't you just go ahead and wire it in? So I would expect that funding to be done in the next few days.
Yeah, I just had Monica sign a W-9, so we can get that.
You sent her a different wire instruction, I assume, than what you sent me.
That's an inside joke.
Right. Hey, you know, we do have that trip to Vancouver to plan, right? Hey, how are you? Everybody has met Dan?
Actually, I'm Charles.
Oh, Charles, yes, that's right.
We need to immediately go into closed session.
No, it's okay. We're going there quickly. The next item on the agenda is to make sure everybody has reviewed the agreement and program schedule that I sent out regarding the agreement with Paulson Oliver, Alex Paulson and Lou Oliver, to do our master plan. Having met with them and talking about how we're going to handle it going forward, I think we are going to get a huge bang for our buck. I mean, they are so engaged in it, and we've really worked to make sure we've got this as an efficient flow of work product as we can. We are going to have weekly meetings, and weekly, used a little bit loosely over the holidays, but certainly after the first year, when finishing up, it's a weekly meeting, just so that there's not a long period of time where we don't have some kind of oversight or monitoring of what they're doing. If you pull over here. What I wanted to just make sure everybody saw was the kind of programming schedule. We modified a little bit with what they had sent, but what we're going to do I sent out the request for availability on the 15th, and I've gotten some response, but they now can be available the 13th, 14th, and 15th. So it's an all-day thing. It's pretty intense. We're going to meet in We're going to meet in groups of 3, bringing in some of the transportation team on different items to like focus on, like when Dave, when you come in, and Clyde, and we will be working deep on the Rotary. And then there'll be time for some of the other things we're thinking about is what goes into the master plan. You know, the city-owned land where Ralph and Charles and I have looked at that. Adjacent landowners, we talked to a couple and have some insight on that. Connectivity, we had the chance to meet with Clyde and Joe Glover, and you know, connectivity is just a huge issue, and I think that for Lou and Alex it is too. So if y'all would just, as we're rotating through, we're going to try to keep 1 or 2 people kind of in most of the meetings so that we have some continuity, so that they're not, you know, oh, well, we address that. Is there, you know, we don't have a lot of duplication. I don't think we will. Wish we could do it differently, but I don't see how.
Just the 13th or the 14th?
Or the 15th. Just the 15th of November, next week.
The only day I'm going to be in town out of that is the 14th.
Okay.
But I don't, with my circumstances, I don't think they ought to plan around me. I think
Do you think you'll be there on the 14th?
I will
Could you
probably
be?
be around in the morning.
Okay, see that, I mean, knowing that, we could schedule.
The other
right
thing
now.
too is I have the GIS information.
Mhm.
Do they need, I can slice it and dice it. I'm used to giving that to Lou I can give it to him in formats that he needs.
I will ask him, they have a CAD, it's interesting how that will happen, but they have the CAD file for the entire city, the whole scope area. So they have that in their office. So I don't know at that point if they need that.
Mhm.
Do you want to call?
14th,
Do you want to
I'll
call Lou about
I'll
that?
follow up with Lou.
I mean, you know what, Charles? One of the things that we could do, we could meet with them if 15th works for everybody else. We could meet them on the morning of the 14th to discuss. Have a chance for you to give input, and we can talk, move that part over. How does the 15th? Can I get a show of hands of just, is the 15th work better than the 14th, or is the 14th better than,
15th is better
Better
for
for you?
me, but afternoon's completely open.
okay? Ralph?
I think I'm good both days. I can change my stuff.
14th, I'm completely booked.
The afternoon of the 15th would be better for me.
Okay.
After the 15th, but
Okay,
I told
afternoon
you-
or morning?
afternoon. I think I told you from 3 to 5, but I said, you know, I could be available other times if you had a whole bunch of
Okay.
people trying to cluster in the late time.
Actually,
Well, I see an afternoon group there.
and I just see, I may be in town on the 15th.
You
I
said that,
just
yeah.
don't, but right now, I just realized.
Hold us out for the 14th. Ralph, could you do 14th morning?
I can do it.
And we could kind of, because that would make
But-
sure you have input on that. David?
I can't do 13th to 14th. The 15th, I can,
Morning?
3 in the morning or the afternoon, but I can't do 11:30 to 1:30.
Do morning. Yeah, I know, that's the Thursday thing. Rotary, right? Yep, all right. Can you do the morning?
Morning, Thursday,
Mhm.
yeah.
That works out awesome. Okay, so excellent. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about the agreement?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have a boundary scope identified?
Yes, it goes from the river to Prospect with a deep definition, I mean, a whole lot more detail, from Oak.
It's where?
To Woodlawn, yeah.
So
From Oak to Woodlawn.
It's Wood-
Not Woodlawn, Woodstock, sorry.
Woodstock, from Oak to Woodstock.
Right there where the, right south of Thumbs Up.
Okay.
Monica, is the area for the economic analysis going to be that general larger area or a smaller area? Because I need to know to put it in the grant. What size?
I would suggest if we're doing a focus on economic development,
A little farther.
well, no, actually, I was going to go the other way to say, if we are trying to zero in on a first phase, whatever that first phase might be,
Mhm.
that ultimately, there's going to be a cost to execute that first phase. We need to have the associated revenue stream going with it in terms of how do we boundary that. So I think if you're saying we're going from the river to Woodstock,
But what if, isn't it the analyst's job to kind of see how far that impact goes? Like if they see the impact going farther than that physical scope,
yeah, I mean, I
Wouldn't
just
you want
think
them
it's
to
a
pick
different
that up?
market area, say, catching South River and North Woodstock. I mean, so,
well, if we went from Prospect, what if we went from Prospect to the Square, 120?
well, I'd
That
say...
historic kind of,
I would leave it up to them to look at the boundary, but I would say the core focus
yeah.
is a phase one, which to me, I think out of this, we need to identify a phase one. And the phase one is whatever we end up with around the square area, or our central village area, whatever.
Well, I think in phasing, it actually is, if I understand the way they're approaching it, is kind of starting, there are going to be some fixed things, like obviously the Rotary criteria, but there is a, as opposed to like this, like a linear down the road, like, it's going to be more global, a little higher level on the first phase, at first
No,
blush.
I'm thinking
and then-
geographic phase, not planning
Right,
phase.
okay, see, okay, got it.
I'm saying that as we come,
As-
there's already been a level of planning through the Gateway project
Right.
from wherever to wherever. And obviously, the square didn't work as designed by Dewani, so the transportation came out with a whole other thing. So
Right.
what I'm suggesting is, out of that planning, there is a first geographic phase,
Mhm.
right, that has some boundary to it that says, and it's probably the area around City Hall, the green area, the intersection, and some abutting property around it. That if we are planning to execute a first phase, that geography is where we're trying to start to create the first project.
Right. But what if they started from, just say Prospect to 120, because I have trouble going farther south. I mean, that's already done with Gateway. And you do a higher level master plan, a general master plan, and then you come down to a tighter geographic and do a lot more on-the-ground detail.
That's what they're talking about, 100 scale
Yeah.
at Highway 9, Magnolia Hill Street, and then 200 scale from
Yeah.
Strickland down to the other areas.
So does that, take it from the agreement from the 200 scale.
Okay, yeah, that might be the best, because even if it has residential areas in it that aren't ripe for adapting, it's still going to affect the income side. you know.
The whole thing is to step back and really be kind of objective
You
about.
want to see what the cost
the-
of services,
Yeah, we need to talk about I'd love to hear about, we've got too much on the agenda today, but to talk about going ahead and looking at the firm that does the economic impact. I know you have a firm, Stephanie had a firm that she recommended. If anybody else has one that we want to look at, you got one too, okay.
I bet they're all,
Would you like to
Well, I'm not-
take,
I'm not sure.
would you like to take that and run with putting together a couple proposals for that?
for the economic, sure, that'd be interesting. Now, you've done some rough cost models that,
Yeah,
Or
Huntley
you-
Partners does a lot of our tasks.
Pardon?
Huntley Partners does a lot of our...
well, why don't I work with Dave
Yeah, I can work
on
with
that,
Dave.
and, okay.
Anyway, my point, and maybe it's, we're already clear, but I mean, I just wanted to make the point that even though we've got a broader area, of which there's already been some master planning, and so, and to the degree that Lou and Alex are doing some additional master plan, the question will be, what did they know that they didn't know then? I mean, are they just looking at it differently, or what?
Mhm.
And as we zero in on this central square area around City Hall,
Right.
that we're grounded in some engineering realities, transportation realities, so we're not drawing pretty pictures that can't be executed.
So integration into other master plans and connectivity are the two things they're looking from those other studies. It's my
And-
understanding.
And I would tell you that it's, again, this balance between master planners just forgetting where property lines are
Yeah.
and all that this thing has to be real property-based. So where there's a property line, that counts in the planning process, which is a level of detail they usually don't go to.
Absolutely.
So when I'm saying around the city hall area, you know my frustration with this. I hire planners all the time, and I tell Charles, get them in line.
That's my job.
So-
I made a career out of that.
Yeah, so all I'm saying is when we
I
get
got
to
it.
that-
I get what you're
You
saying.
know what I'm saying? Otherwise, we're going to get something we can't execute.
Right.
That's my only concern.
I would also, so I think that I'm hearing two things, or I'm hearing this, and I'd like to add one other thing. So based in the reality of developability, and if you will, this is like a conformance plan, if you will. There was the Dewani, where it was sort of broad brush, and in the term of the trade is a conformance plan. This is something that does, that work and has economic basis from a DDA standpoint. The other thing I think is we should be intentional as a DDA about reaching out to the community development and to transportation, who have been our partners
Yeah,
on
they are.
this. And so to the extent that maybe we even have a person designated to make sure that we're, like, including Clyde.
Well, yeah,
and,
we're working, Clyde's kind of our contact.
and then community development, I know that Clyde coordinates with them some, but I'd like to bring them in a little bit. to
Yeah,
this
just
part.
for nomenclature, the phrase I'm
Oh,
talking
yeah,
about.
I guess that's you. Yeah, but I'm thinking more of the planners.
You got
we
master
really need-
planning, you got conceptual engineering, which is what you usually do for me, that says, all right, we got, and then
Yeah.
you've got detailed engineering. Those are the three phases. We're hiring Lou and them to master plan. but
Conceptual, yeah.
We need to, if we don't have bridged over to a degree into the conceptual engineering, we're not going to be able to cost model, we're not going to be able to prove this thing can be done. All right, so it's got to bleed over into that a little
Mhm.
bit. And-
I hear what you're saying. You want to make sure we have enough practical detail
Yeah,
on the, kind of the focus scoped area.
right, right. I'm not saying the whole,
Yeah,
that's
I
too
got
much.
it.
But whatever we zero in as is our phase one geography, whatever that boundary is, that ought to be at a level of detail that recognizes property lines, property owners,
Right. And-
stormwater conditions, whatever.
Are we open to, if there's some key areas of assemblage that they kind of say, hey, if you pull these three together, you could do this? Not all over the place, but if there's some key areas, one of the things he can do with the way they're doing it is they can actually turn off layers, so that if there was an idea that popped up, there would be one that shows, because you don't want a plan going out that shows developing someone's property with their next door neighbor who they might not be able to stand. For example, he was looking at the parking lot of the antiques market, and I'm like, you just can't go pick out a single person and just redo,
Yeah.
develop their thing. And the whole thing was, you would be able to turn it off, but at least it would start giving us some ideas of ways that we could kind of engage the property owners on potential. Y'all open to that? I mean, think about that. I mean, that's the kind of thing we'll talk about next week. But I don't want them going and doing it, but I think there may be some key places as we recraft the road that you start to see land look a little different, some adjacent. I don't know. I don't know if it happens.
Oh, yeah.
The one.
Don't you think that's kind of hard if we don't have an envisioned use for the property, just to presumptively say, well, it looks like it might be better if these three parcels were assembled? Isn't that kind of getting the cart before the horse?
No, I mean, I think that's part of us working with them, is identifying potential uses that might go on different properties. If there's enough, I'm thinking about one in particular when we were looking at it. It just lends itself to a residential component with some maybe retail below. I mean, anyway, this is the kind of stuff we'll talk about next week. Yeah, you can, if part of it's kind of sticular. Can I have a motion to approve this agreement so we can go ahead and execute it? Or
Motion, we move on to the agreement.
by the second?
Second.
All in favor? And we will be, Dave, are you in or out? You just don't like this one.
Doesn't have enough detail for me, but I mean, you've been in discussions. As long as you, I don't know if our 40,000 gets us into that level of detail I'm talking about. That's my only question. You know, I'll get really frustrated if I get, you know, if they're still hovering 10,000 feet above the ground.
And I can see his concern if we're dealing with this long stretch, and in reality, we're going to be pretty hyper-focused in a pretty small
Yeah,
area. At
yeah.
the end of this, we want to come out with probably 6 or 8 acres of prime redevelopment that we're going to get behind. And I think we need to just make that real clear to them, that you can do a broad brush, the 200 scale, but when we get to 100, you know.
I'd almost say that probably,
Let's-
yes, I'm just throwing something out, that 80% of this fee structure is about this core Phase 1 area.
Yep.
Okay.
20% sort of ties some connecting concepts in.
And that's an
But if it gets
important-
spread out evenly across the whole district, we won't have
Well,
enough
here-
detail.
I think it'll come out.
80/20 rule.
I've got
Also,
that.
we had and this is just for information because there's no weight behind it, but we did talk to them about that. The truth is, this is on their, this is kind of, they're damned if they do and damned if they don't, because if they produce something that we don't like, regardless of what the amount of money is, or we can't use, then it's going to, you know, it kind of comes back on them. So it's almost like by them accepting this, they're going to have to produce more than what they normally would do, and they're going to have to answer to us, you know, for what we need to get this done. So I don't know if that helps or whatever, but it really, I mean, we did have that conversation with them, and we did say directly that, you know, we've got to have something that we can use. This can't just be, you know, this isn't payback for anything. We appreciate everything you've done, but this is about going forward. So.
We've got a vote open. Why don't we back up and try to think how to do this, kind of reopen it for discussion. If you want to amend this to add some language in,
I mean, I would just make the note to add to the detail here, not necessarily whether we wanted to change this, but I would just want to make sure that this proposal is focused on delivering an 80% focused on what we determine to be Phase 1.
Of a catalytic
Geograph-
of a
what we
catalytic
believe are the
project.
catalytic project that will kickstart.
That'll
the
really
area.
help me.
And if we had that defined
Uh-huh.
by, a geography, sort of a bubble area, which I think, again, is
Yeah.
sort of our intersection and a couple of blocks around it, then I'm satisfied that this is focused in the right way, and that,
what level of detail do you see coming out with that? I mean, they've got it down to, 1 to 100. What kind of, I mean, because
It's not so
we
much-
started, it wasn't, again, we started, when I got the proposal originally, it was before the transportation plan. I mean, so we've revised it a little bit. What kind of, at that point, we were not going for kind of engineering level detail. Is that what we want to get out of this now?
well, no, I'm satisfied that if the level of detail includes exact property line locations.
Okay.
And property owners, because that presents the ability, somebody says they don't want to sell and somebody does.
All right.
And we're able to work, then we know a hard line. Too often those lines are just sort of disregarded. So wherever we got in our zone,
Okay.
we have every piece of property delineated. We know where lines are, and lines have to be thought of in the planning property lines have to be thought of in
Fair.
the planning process.
This
To me, that's
clearly
the
has
level of
happened
detail.
before.
I'll give you a real good, I can't exactly nail it for you, but you know what Clyde Strickland gave us on the Orkin tracks, where and those pieces that were around it?
Right.
And then over the course of the next week, how we kind of broke it apart, looked at how the different pieces of the infrastructure worked, and so we aggregated it in terms of planning, and then we disaggregated it in terms of how the infrastructure could go in there.
Okay.
That's what Dave's looking for, and that's what'll work, because then you know the story.
Okay. So I'll let you explain that exact.
And they were in on that.
Well, that's what I was
Yeah,
figuring, so
and
that.
and I think that
Yeah,
I know exactly how he thinks, so, but I think that's the level that we're talking about, is that
And
you
we're not
aggregate
gonna
it.
do that
and
way up
since-
and down the road. It's just-
In a master plan, you're aggregating it, but then there's that next kind of piece that he's talking about, where you take it a little bit apart and you say, okay, here's the challenges. It's still a really good idea, but here's the challenge, or here's how we're going to make it. This has to happen, which answers your question, Richard, about how pieces either do or don't work together, which in the Orkin piece was why it never went.
Yeah.
You know, the property that I was thinking of is the parking lot beside the Steve's, and then the Wells Fargo, for
Mhm.
example. Those are
It's just
individual,
logical.
but put together, and there's a possibility that that could happen at some point. All right. So, we're going to do this very informally, but I'm just going to modify, how can we do this motion? I'm trying to think. We can modify this agreement that 80% of fees will be dedicated to the Phase 1.
Core Phase 1
Okay.
area.
So I'm putting number 5, I'm modifying it, that 80%
He's focusing on.
of fee expenditure
Huh.
You focus.
That's why we're sitting.
on the primary phase instead of Phase 1.
On the catalytic project.
Phase is defined by the DDA. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to put that in there. Do I have a motion to accept this agreement with number 5? 80% of the fee expenditures will be focused on the primary phase of this project as defined by the DDA. Is that okay? Is that okay?
We'll send the message in the first meeting.
Huh?
I said, I'm fine with that. We'll.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be said several
We'll hear it
times.
loud and clear at the first
Poor guys.
meeting.
You gotta be nice, because they are putting out a whole lot of work. From our meeting with them, kind of basically saying, I mean, their principal time is going to be donated. I mean, that's really what's happening on this.
Good.
So,
I'm sorry, there's just a couple things I normally see in contracts like this, and one is, you may want to, on B, on compensation, you may want to put a cap on that as well. You only have another $5,000 in the amount that you were given, that you could use for that.
Oh, for reimbursables?
For reimbursables. And another thing we normally have is kind of like some milestones where they get paid 20 or 50% at a certain point in the project when they produce a deliverable. I don't see lists of like
that's true.
physical
That's true.
deliverables in this.
They propose in here to invoice monthly.
Oh, they did, based on their hourly
Terms
rate.
and conditions and attachments.
you know what, I'm going to change to reimbursable expenses, because we went up on this, the reimbursable expenses are included in the,
Yeah, I think
yeah.
They are?
I'm changing it.
We're changing.
Okay.
And you know, if they need to come back, and the whole thing of working with them closely through this process, we're going to know how the fee expenditures are going, so we'll know how that's, all right. All right, so I'm going to change on compensation. B, reimbursable expenses are to be included in the compensation outlined in section 2.A. Now, do I have a motion for those two changes that I just read? You got those down?
I'll move for that.
I'll second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And got the schedule. Yay. Because Dan's here, and I'm respectful of his time. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, glad you're here. I'd like to move the discussion about marketing effort with the RVA, but I guess I actually asked you some questions on this. Let me hit it real quick, and if we want further discussion on this, if we could please do this after executive session. David Lyon is going to take over the web and marketing effort for us. Thank you so much. And that'll include coordination with PR and design professionals as far as web and keeping that going. We don't know what the scope of that will be. We've been in conversations with Steve Stroud of the Roswell Business Alliance, to use try to leverage his resources and ours. We have a lot of commonality. We're after the same thing. We're trying to generate economic development. On his staff, he has a woman named Becky Hawkins, who's their communications manager, and she's wonderful. We think there's a way that we could contribute to her salary at some point. We do not have a number yet, but that will be something that will be coming up probably in the next month, our next meeting, that we could use her time and to handle. She's always on the patch, letting people know and handling, keeping up the web, or once we get a website defined, keeping that information up. It won't be meeting information necessarily, which we will be able to update, but it's more of getting, leveraging some of that effort. So that's going to be defined. We found out from Dan that we can do that. Amazing the things we have to be concerned about. I was like, what? Because apparently the city, if I'm not mistaken, cannot promote a business, like you can't do a press release to announce a business coming to town, but the Business Alliance can.
Yes, and I do have a few thoughts to share on
Okay.
all that, if you like, if this is a good time.
Perfect.
All right. You all are better judges of whether this is a good idea or not than I am, but it seems to me that it is. For all the reasons that you said, it's an opportunity to leverage and to take advantage of the resources there and spread some costs out so we don't have to absorb all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's plenty of precedent for that in the state. There's a lot of situations where development authorities, DDAs, and other types of authorities enter into a formal or informal relationship with a nonprofit, and that nonprofit might be a 501c3 or it might be a chamber of commerce like the RBA. So the kind of issues that come up, rightly or wrongly, for example, are whether the charge being made by the nonprofit to the public body is appropriate.
Okay.
Anybody from the press here? Okay, off the record. Anybody read the Marietta Daily Journal?
No, but this is the second time it's been brought up in a meeting today.
Well, it's been bad, and it might not be so bad going forward, but whenever they lack for a story, they pillory the deal between the Cobb Chamber of Commerce and the Development Authority of Cobb County, which has to do with the authority paying the chamber for staffing, and maybe for some other stuff too. The authority pays for advertising materials. Is this beginning to sound familiar based on what we're talking
Scary.
about?
Yeah.
And I think it's complete bull roar, really. But it gets your name in the paper. So the legal principle is gifts and gratuities. The public sector is not supposed to confer a gift or gratuity on the private sector. And there are other things too, like delegation of powers. And I know we're not talking about it, but if you were to say, okay, RBA, go decide what the borders ought to be of our redevelopment plan. Open meetings, open records. Another reason the media is suspicious of arrangements like this is because they think you're trying to push things that you don't want subject to open records off to a body that's not subject to open records.
Okay.
And then you can find yourself, anytime you trust somebody, they can let you down. So, for example, if they're going to host our website, one of the legal requirements is that we post on our website, if we have one, our regular meeting schedule. And there's a couple of other situations where the law requires something like that to be done. So, it's really not any different than a private contractor, a private webmaster. If they don't do what they're supposed to do, it's on us, not on them. So, that's a bunch of things I wanted to just share with you, not to advise against or to scare you about doing this, because things like this make sense. But it's all in how you do it, like so many other things.
Okay. Well, clearly, we'll be looking to council as we move forward on that.
So does that mean in practicality that if we go into a relationship with the RBA to provide some service for us, and we have an agreement that states specifically what it is we're asking for, what we're going to compensate them for, which is all subject to open records, but it all hangs together?
Yeah, that's right, Dave. It ought to be in writing. The Cobb Chamber and the Cobb Development Authority have an MOU, and the terms have to be right. And I would suggest that when we approve that by resolution, that we make some legislative findings about how legal it is, which, again, is nothing It's very, very remote that anything like this will ever come up of a legal nature. But there's no, it doesn't cost anything to do it right, so that's what I would recommend when the time comes.
So that's when we're trying to figure out how to work this.
It's more than you
Thank
expected, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I was surprised, but I'm wonderful. I mean, knowing to ask, it's a huge thing. Thank you. At this point, the only thing we have some discussion to acquire real estate or look at a possibility of that. And so I need to make have someone make a motion that we
Go into
Go into
executive
executive
session
session.
to discuss the acquisition of real estate.
Please. Anyone? You want to do that?
I make a motion that we go into discussion for the acquisition of real estate
Executive session.
in the executive session.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now, is there anybody here who is not either an authority board member or somebody who the authority needs in order to consider this matter?
Unfortunately, Chair. Yep, this time we can't have you staying. Nancy stays because she's involved in this particular transaction. She has information on this particular transaction, specific to the transaction. Sorry. Thank you so much. Doesn't even have a sponsor in. It's a tax credit, a portion of it, the part I'm most interested in, has a tax credit for improvements within designated downtown areas. And we are like the poster child to receive the highest level of it. It would be the timing, even doing our zoning code, they were talking about that being a thing that would get you up to the highest level, up to 25% tax credit of improvements, up to $500,000. So we're talking some serious dollars in here, and it would put these crazy priced properties where you could actually do something, you know. But it needs support within our industry, having the DDA respond, so please take time to read that. And that's it. Do you have a motion to adjourn? Unless, yeah.
Go ahead.
Anybody have anything else?
Thank you, I was listening.
I move to adjourn.
Okay.
I move we adjourn.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And on the Renaissance thing, maybe we can,
Go ahead.
I'll take the lead. We can maybe get us ready and be gold when everyone else.